Alright, so here's the thing. Sorry, wrong game. Anyway, I'm sure we've all experienced the disappointment of buying a jumbo-sized bag of chips just to have half of it full of air. Usually, that leaves you disappointed, but you already bought the chips, so might as well eat them, right? I think that sentiment perfectly encapsulates what's going on here with Payday 3. It's still a video game, but is it half-baked or is it enough to satisfy its audience? Well, that's a great way to start, isn't it?
Well, excuse me, princess.
What most Payday fans were hoping for with Starbreeze's new installment of the series was adding on to the foundation that was already set by the first and second game. As a Payday fan myself and having hundreds of hours in Payday 2, I was excited when last year Payday 3 was set to drop. Immediately, as hype for Payday 3 was being stirred up, I, as well as many others, noticed how good the game looked graphically.
Nice.
Upscale from anything we had seen from the Payday gang in the past. And with the promise of new mechanics, as well as thrilling new heists set in the new setting of New York, how could fans not get excited about a new playground for us heisters to, heist? Or so I thought. I didn't jump in on the day of release due to one major reason, and it was due to the community backlash about how the launch was in less than optimal condition. So I just recently jumped into the game a year later, and not because I heard a lot of positive support for it.
Foreshadowing is a narrative
but more so because it became free with PS Plus. I wanted to see what the game had to offer, the shortcomings and the good. As much as it pains me to say it, I can see why this new installment is so mixed on reviews. It feels as though it's early access. The game seems to have the landlord special applied. It looks good on the surface, but the moment it's stress tested, the cracks begin to show. The previous installment was released 11 years ago, and it still holds up. The graphics might seem dated, but presentation doesn't always translate to enjoyment. I don't mean to use this terminology when describing Payday, but I always got the feeling that it was a looter shooter. However, not the kind like Borderlands, Destiny, and other games of the same genre. This game is purely for the grind, and not in the way that it's bleeding your wallet dry, but more so in the sense of replayability. Whether it be through different approaches to heists, experimenting with builds, decking out your heister, or
I'm the Joker, baby!
Or just getting bragging rights through its difficult achievements. I hate to keep looking back instead of forward in this instance, but it's necessary. Payday 2 had a lot of UI and gameplay elements that made the player feel rewarded for each action in their heist. This is a feeling that is lacking with the new installment. From briefings, assets, blueprints for the heist location you're about to go to, and most importantly, having a way of seeing big number get bigger. Hell, I even enjoyed hunting down these damn goodie bags like they were a scavenger hunt, because no matter if it was good or bad, the reward was always new options to try out. That's all well and good. Now let's focus on the main core of Payday, the gameplay. Doesn't matter if your game is the most realistic or if it has endless content. Players aren't going to invest a great deal of time into your game if they aren't satisfied with how the game feels. And man, does Payday feel good. Whether it was through build customization, enemy variety, louder stealth approaches to the heists, there was always a flow to the game that made you feel like you're fighting back against the entirety of Washington's police force, and you'll inevitably lose, unless you. Believe me, there isn't anything quite like escaping from police, SWAT, hell, even the military sometimes, and getting back to the main menu to unlock a ton of options to kit out your heister of choice. Wolf, Jacket, and Clover being some of my personal favorites. The key part of setting yourself up to play Payday how you'd like was always dependent on skill management and seeing what worked best given your approach to the game, whether it be through stealth, loud, or a mix. Payday 3 has skills and customization as well. However, in the 40 to 50 hours I put into the game, there's some issues that instantly became apparent. The skills might be too streamlined to the game's own detriment, We've lost out on any way of directly affecting the detection level, which made heists more immersive, especially for stealth. For example, light armor and compact weaponry meant detection started at almost zero, but on the contrary, going in with heavy armor and a Barrett 50 cal meant you were likely to be seen that same instant by a guard. I'm not one to care for immersion breaking in games, but it does feel a bit ridiculous when I can full stealth a heist with an LMG and am as silent as the wind. As far as I've seen, aside from movement adjustments and NPC behavior being affected by skills in the game, there isn't anything that directly affects detection anymore, which is a shame. Then there's Grit, Rush, and Edge, or the gear system as I like to call it. These three buffs seem to be how the developers want us to manage our builds, which, don't get me wrong, there is potential for a lot of fun to be had with them. Yet these same three buffs are limiting build variety. Now let's look at which skills generate their respective buffs. Heads up to Payday3.gg made this part of the research extremely easy. Shout out to fan-made sites like that, they're always the best for this kind of thing. So in total, there are 135 skills within Payday 3, which are divided up into 21 trees. Out of these 21, 14 give you one of these three buffs to gain, upon spending a single skill point into them. Rush, for example, is a buff many fans of Payday likely enjoy having, since we all love to move around the level faster, especially on stealth heists. Yet 8 out of 21 available skill trees give you Rush on the first skill, over 1/3 of the available skill trees. Then the following 7 skills give you a bit of an edge, and the other 6 give you some grit? Let me check real quick. So that's what it means. The 2 other skill trees are only applicable if a heist goes loud, so no added benefit for stealth heists. Now, you may have noticed an error in my explanation. I said there were 14 skill trees that allow you to gain one of these 3 buffs, not 21, and that's true if we account for aced skills, which actually turns the skill tree from looking like this to this. 2 gained grit trees, 4 gained edge trees, and 6 gained rush trees. That are only 6 if we don't exclude the 2 skills that are purely or mainly stealth heist related, Grifter and Infiltrator. This greatly limits our options for builds around the gear system, since 1/3 of it almost doesn't exist from the get-go. There is an entire breakdown I can make on the skill tree alone, since there are some interesting skills there. But a lot of skills are definitely swayed towards just removing your gear buffs when there are already few options in most regards to even get them. This, paired with the manner in which you get skill points, allows for very little messing around with builds for the early game, and you're stuck with just the first few hours of the game feeling bland, which isn't what players are coming to your game for. From my experience, I didn't feel there was any way to actually start piecing a build together until I reached around 15 to 17 skill points, which was over halfway into the level cap of Payday 3. That's not to say there aren't some builds here to make, which there definitely are. Hell, just look. Once a build clicked for me, I finally felt like I was playing Payday, the game series I had sunk countless hours into, not just a pretty looking game with no depth. The foundation for a grand part of the customization was already there with all the features that were in place from Payday 2. Besides just the skills, it was also the type of weapons we had access to, which were massive by the end of Payday 2, anywhere from akimbo, LMGs, snipers, and damn poison kunai. I don't believe that every weapon from the previous installment should have been ported over, since let's be real, overhauling all that content would take forever, but at least having 2 to 3 options available for each weapon type from the previous game would have filled the gap for the time being. The inclusion of the overkill weapons is something that I will say is a nice addition to Payday 3, since in the past sacrificing one of your weapon slots for a bulldozer deleter weapon felt a little restrictive to playstyle, but here it feels like an earned reward for survival, which is a nice addition. Now let's not forget the most drippiest part of everything, the masks. I won't lie, the only reason I ever gave Payday a shot back in 2011 was because of Wolf's mask. It stared straight into my soul, man. And that only got even more badass with the insane level of customization you had for them in Payday 2. So it's a bit of a shame that the masks in the new installment feel really restrictive in a sense. In a dev diary that Starbreeze posted, they stated that they wanted to approach the game with a more serious tone, and you don't start your comeback being silly.
Not look goofy right away. We'll have our chance to add all the silly and goofy stuff.
But I think that's the part a lot of fans always appreciated. The fact that we know not to take this game too serious, but rather just shut off our brains and just have fun. They also mentioned in the same dev diary how preset masks were going to be in the game, and the only difference was going to be that they had an exclusive pattern on them.
Feature called preset masks, and those are interesting. Those are mostly consist of the items that are available
at the black market
to customize your own mask, but they usually feature one unique thing, like a unique pattern that you cannot buy.
There also are exclusive weekly masks that can only be bought with C-stacks, like other items in the game. Mind you, the Payday community for years never saw masks as just cosmetics to look pretty, like with other games. They were bragging rights, and not from spending money in the game or just grinding out an in-game currency, but rather from completing challenges that the devs made, sometimes really fun ones, and some that to this day players have thrown their towel in even trying to get. In some ways, they are kind of like a rite of passage for players, showing how they actually enjoy the game they're playing, which Payday 3 is lacking, and ends up making the player lose any semblance of progress besides just making your player level higher, and that's pretty much it, which isn't just what Payday is to its community. Oh, almost forgot. A bit of gambling does help make one feel like a true adrenaline junkie too. You know what? Forget about that. Now let's focus on the world that is our playground to hide in the shadows or absolutely cause mayhem in. At the time of writing this video, there are currently 12 heists present to access from the offset, and 4 paid DLC heists that have been added. I played through all the heists that were non-DLC in both ways that they could be approached, obviously with the exception of Road Rage and Cook-Off, since those are pure loud heists. Overall, my experience was enjoyable with the 8 new original heists within the game. There are some issues that I see with the heists, but nothing I can't see being improved. I'm going to give a quick rundown of all the heists to show what are the pros and the cons. Starting with the briefing period, when selecting a heist you can choose to skip all exposition and just go straight into the loadouts, which is fine. But in previous installments, I believe the right balance was already there. Listen to the briefing if you want to or not, while you make last minute adjustments to your loadout in the heist by purchasing assets, getting a few blueprints of where your planned score is going to be. All that was not removed in this installment. However, the only way you can acquire assets in this game is through random chance at the end of heists. And usually, they aren't for the heist you just finished. So there is already a lack of control in the heist you're going into, so if it's your first time, you're quite literally going in blind. And it doesn't help that your handler tells you they have the floor plans for the building, yet we as the player can't see them like in the previous game. Really makes you miss Bane. Anywho, let's get into the heists. No Rest for the Wicked is a nicely packed heist for anyone starting out their heisting career in the new scene that is the Big Apple. It's a small heist that allows for multiple entry points and is fairly easy to pull off whether it be in stealth or loud attempts. Stealth is definitely easier once you've allocated a few points into the stealth-centric skill trees, given the size of the bank and all the multiple points of entry you have access to. Overall, it is a good heist to be introduced to the new mechanics that are present in the game. I nicknamed it the training stage.
That's what I expected.
Best heist to try new builds on without having to stress about too much going on. The only con I have regarding this heist is while playing solo, there is almost no way to acquire all the loot at its maximum value due to the ink packets exploding before being able to disarm all of them, whether it's in stealth or not. Like I said though, this is only really an issue for solo players. Other than that, this heist is a solid 8 out of 10. Not reinventing the wheel, but also not doing anything wrong. The main pros for this heist is genuinely that there aren't any cons for it. It's a straightforward heist just like the transport heist from Payday 2, reminds me of Green Bridge, so that's nice, but other than that, it's pretty straightforward. Sometimes heists don't have to be all that complicated. They could just be as straightforward as going, get the loot, and get out. As long as the environment is interesting, the assault waves feel like they are adjusted for the heist you're playing, which, in this case, it's probably my second favorite loud heist in the game. I don't really like the transport heist from Payday 2, but I really like this one for some reason. Probably due to the layout that the map generally has, which definitely is a pro. There isn't any cons here, pretty straightforward run and gun heist. Give it a solid 8 out of 10. Dirty Ice is an interesting heist. It's small, but it has a lot going on in it, which isn't bad, but at the same time it makes me think, how are we supposed to be really approaching this heist? Is it more intended for stealth or loud? I like the fact that we're made to jump through hoops in order to go ahead and secure the most value we can out of the jewelry that is in the store, especially through stealth by having to deal with the jewelry being serialized, so we have to go ahead and remove any traces to avoid it being tracked. However, that's pretty much where my good graces with this heist end. That it's immersive for stealth, but the best bang for your buck is loud every time. One of my least favorite things to have to deal with in any game has to be being penalized for playing the way you want, and you don't end up getting the same rewards or equivalent for having played in a different style. I feel if you want to actually benefit to the max with the loot that is available, then you're better off running it fully loud every time you go into this heist, since there is jewelry in the front of the store that you can't access unless you go full alert, which is a shame because the stealth aspect of Payday 3 is done well and can be expanded on further. Overall, a 6 out of 10 since the main max loot option is pretty much only loud.
Foreshadowing delivered.
Rock the Cradle is second for the best stealth heist in the game. It feels like this is one that they put the most love into when creating it for stealth, because there's not much variety on how to approach getting the crypto wallet, but the things you have to do in between do feel interesting, as well as I can see the vision that they had while crafting it. Almost like a Payday 2 heist, where it's not the most technically ambitious heist, but there's just enough variation for it to constantly feel like you're blending in with the shadows. Or better yet, stealing from them in plain sight while running 99% of the heist pretty much on case mode. That is one of the things that I do like with this installment of the Payday franchise, and it's that case mode did get reworked into something that felt cohesive, because in the last game, It was a cool feeling to see your mask pop up before you went loud in a heist or pulled a roadrunner sprinting through a stealth mission. But aside from that, there was no real use for case mode. It was hardly ever used, but it feels like if you want to go ahead and pre-plan and actually approach stealth in this manner, it's totally viable. The only con I have would be that once you go loud and aren't able to acquire the crypto wallet, it pretty much just turns into a smash and grab heist. There is a vault to get whatever stacks of money are in there, but at that point it pretty much just turns into the introductory bank heist. Overall, a fun heist, keeps the stealth fun and lets you use new mechanics without too much hassle. 9 out of 10 for stealth, and for loud, 7 out of 10. Under the Surface is great for stealth because it has a lot going on and is easily the best stealth heist in the game. You can approach and secure the loot in different intervals, and also go ahead and have other players clear out any of the exhibitions that aren't part of the heist. It has a fantastic layout, as well as the art direction is through the roof with this heist. It's very aesthetically pleasing to look at, and the guards don't feel like they're placed in odd parts of the map, or just singled out to easily avoid. It was the stealth heist that I messed up the most in, which is a good thing in my opinion, because stealth should be harder than going loud. Compared to the other heists that took 2 or 3 tries to run in stealth, I appreciate that this one is structured in a more difficult manner. That feels like it's a skill issue rather than the game being unfair. This heist clearly shows what's missing from the other stealth approaches of the other heists, and that would be a variety of security measures. It's all key cards or QR codes, but here it's actual interactivity with the level. Like, I enjoyed having to deal with avoiding lasers, parkouring to avoid motion censored floors, finding blood spatter to know which loot is legit, and using a UV camera to make sure we were getting the USB into the right painting, if not it'll set itself on fire. There was so much variety in this heist that made me feel like I was doing the Big Diamond all over again, which is one of my favorite stealth heists from the previous installment. It's legitimately the art gallery, but on crack, and it's awesome. The heist doesn't have any real cons I can think of from the attempts I made, other than needing to do the same steps while on loud compared to the stealth route. But all around, a good heist. Overall, I think this is the best designed heist in the game. 10 out of 10, nothing more to say. N Sharke is a straightforward bank heist that we've grown accustomed to in this installment. There aren't a lot of steps to follow to finish this heist, and doesn't play too different on loud or stealth. I do appreciate that most of the heists can be done in case mode though. 2 heists come to mind: the Big Bank and the First World Bank. I understand that being one of the heisting fantasies that fans might have is bank robbing, but there isn't too much here with this bank heist. In comparison to the other 2 mentioned, those were scaled up banks like in this heist, but they had a lot of presentation! And this one offers very little excitement when playing it. You're pretty much just 3 easily able to handle doors away from the loot. It's also further negatively impacted when 3 out of the 12 heists in the game are bank robbing heists, and one of them is vastly superior even though it's been used in the series since Payday 1. Which shouldn't be the case, since the Payday gang has never just adhered to robbing the usual scores one could imagine. Like in the past, we've robbed the military, cartel, rich yacht owners, and even the FBI. So going and making 25% of the content available from the offset, the same heist, almost does make the flow seem kind of stale. PS, need purchasable assets stat. Since without the elevator shaft asset, I'd rather just do the heist loud every time. Objectively, this heist is pretty standard bank heist. Just I expected more from a new location set in the Big Apple, which was hyped up as a very hard new location for our heisters. So in short, I'm giving this heist a 5 out of 10. It had potential to be really great, but there wasn't a real set piece or difficulty to it like the Big Bank or First World Bank, which, although similar in scope, had a lot more variety present. $99 has Ice-T as its handler for the briefing, which is a cool cameo if you ever press the brief button to notice. Other than that, I do like the fact that this heist feels like an overwhelming fight when you go loud. You have police coming at you from all angles, and most of the area you're going to be covering is open space, which hardly gives you time to breathe. Almost like playing Shipment from COD, but instead you're the guy spawn killing everyone. Now on the stealth end, it's a very simple and straight to the point heist. You can start grabbing the loot within a few minutes of the heist starting, and the deteriorating loot does make it feel like a speedrun once you get your hands on it, which is fun. Not really a con so much as I would say a difficulty issue with this heist is the 4 radios you start with.
Bonjour madame.
They make it a walk in the park as long as you avoid the remaining security guards after you've eliminated the rest. Basically, it's a free heist. Even with just 3 radios, the heist is fairly easy, especially if you use those radios on 2 guards taking care of the containers. Not much else to say about this heist. Pretty fun. Overall, 8 out of 10. A very solid stealth heist. I do feel that it's perfectly set up for heisters that have builds specifically trained on stealth, since there's lures and plenty of cameras to hack around the penthouse. It definitely feels like this heist was made with that in mind, over the others. The pathing of security guards feels the most involved out of the other levels, which makes you feel tense in such an enclosed space, which is fun. Going loud also feels good in this heist, since the level feels like you can funnel all the SWAT and other enforcers through the hallways, allowing you to get your buffs quite easily. Overall, a nice heist that can be completed easily, with the right build and enough caution. Heist is fairly well done whether it's loud or stealth, so nothing wrong here. Quite enjoyed it. The only minor buff this heist could use is allowing the asset menu to be implemented, so we can always have the vent asset available to deposit our loot during our stealth runs. Overall, 8 out of 10. Heists are pretty solid all around. I skipped over the other 4 heists in the game, and the reason behind that is because they're from the previous Payday installments. Alright, sorry to kill the motion for the video, but it's actually 3 Payday heists from the previous game. Diamond District is actually all original for the game. I was thinking it was Diamond Store since it was lumped in with the other 3, but yeah. Anyways, back to the video. Ultimately, the heists in the game aren't bad, just not as creative as heists done in the past. There definitely are improvements to be made as the game is developed further, and possibly the DLC heists are amazing, or at least solid, especially since they're making you pay for the DLCs. Also, total side note, before I end up moving on to the next topic of the video, but we need event heists back.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
They've always been fun and offered just a nice change of pace from the tone of the other heists. Alright, now I know it might seem like I'm trying to tear down this game and that I don't like it, but it's quite the opposite. I want Payday 3 to excel, just like its previous installment, since it has been one of the game series I've had the most fun playing casually. However, I do share the sentiment like others in the community that this game was released too early. In the time I spent playing this game, I ran into so many glaring issues, even a whole year into the game. There's bad NPC AI that doesn't care if there is a body in front of them sometimes or close to them. Then there's camera AI that had similar issues like standing right in front of them and having no detection go off. But you can be almost half the heist away and they can still detect you. Also, I had a guard see me through a door at one point during a stealth attempt, which was a perk I didn't know guards had in Payday 3.
Stop right there, criminal scum!
There was also one time that I was going through a heist and out of nowhere a civilian that wasn't even in the same room or near me got alerted and ended up costing me the heist. Most of the footage I got while playing the game was done in the solo beta, which I still don't understand why it's still in beta if when they were showing us dev diaries before the game released, they were showing us solo gameplay with bots. The challenge book was also shown in those same dev diaries too. However, the usefulness of the solo bots range wildly at times. They'll place deployables that do help, but then other times they act as if their controller got disconnected. Moving on from that, there is a major glaring issue, and that's that the game is permanently online at all times, which is a decision that I feel came to bite Starbreeze in the ass, because most of the glitches I encountered during the game were due to this. I had multiple occurrences that I tried to buy attachments or weapons, and I couldn't, since the store said I wasn't that level after clearly being over the level required. There were also times that I finished heists and the game showed me I gained experience, but then later on I saw that it didn't count. C-stacks as well. I went out of my way to do the daily challenges one day to get all the C-stacks and came to find out that they were marked as complete, but I was never accredited with the C-stacks. Hell, even the achievements for the game are glitched. I got this trophy while I was booting up the game and I had gotten all 3 buffs required for the achievement 2 days prior to the notification popping up. Lastly is the matchmaking. A great deal of the matches I tried to join either failed while trying to join or dealt with disconnects. If the game is dealing with multiple connectivity issues to this level, the focus should be on having a strong foundation for offline play at the minimum before multiplayer features are focused on, especially since the game's been out for over a year.
That overconfidence is a slow and insidious killer.
Like I mentioned before, the game isn't in the worst state possible. However, it definitely needs some work, which I know the Payday team could put in, especially given the scope and constant updates they gave Payday 2. That game is straight up a labor of love. There's also other games that have had bad starts like No Man's Sky, Cyberpunk 2077, and Final Fantasy XIV. I'm sure Payday 3 can turn it around like these other games. It's just going to take a lot of work and focusing on the foundation of the game first, before any further DLC, in order for them not to burn through all the good faith they've built up with their fans before it's all nothing but ash and dust.
Do you know what time it is? And take your call at the moment.
Do you want to continue or not?
Did you know that the Nintendo Entertainment System was initially called the Family Computer when released in Japan? Job is done. Now time to relax and enjoy life.